Have you ever believed something just because everyone else does? Or maybe you read a headline that says, scientists say chocolate cake for breakfast makes you live longer, and thought to yourself, hey, why not? Today, we're diving into why we're so quick to believe, well, almost anything. In this episode, we're not just talking critical thinking, we're putting it to work. We'll unravel why our brains love shortcuts, how to spot questionable facts, and what it takes to start thinking for ourselves. No pipe smoking or philosophy degrees required. So if you're tired of autopilot opinions and ready to level up your thinking game, stick around. By the end, you'll know how to spot a red flag from a mile away and maybe even save yourself from one too many social media myths. So let's jump right in. So tell me, have you ever caught yourself saying something like, I saw it online, so it must be true? Or perhaps, well, if that many people believe it, it can't be wrong, right? If you're nodding along, you're in good company, a good questionable company. Today, we're diving into critical thinking, which, judging by the number of weird things people believe, might just be the world's most endangered skill. But don't worry, we're not here to lecture. We're here to laugh, maybe cringe a little, and learn about how we can stop being just another cog in the wheel of mindless agreement. What even is critical thinking? And why is it hard to come by? Why do people seem to prefer autopilot opinions instead of pressing that pause and consider button? And most importantly, can we avoid these moments of staring at an online comment section and wondering, is everyone else as confused as I am? Let's find out. Now, let's face it, critical thinking sounds a bit heavy. It's like you hear it, and suddenly you feel like you should be donning a tweed jacket, smoking a pipe, and reading philosophy by candlelight. But believe it or not, critical thinking isn't reserved for the highly intellectual. It's actually just a fancy way of saying, let's think before we jump to conclusions. That's about it. I know, revolutionary, right? Now, here's a little brain teaser for you. Have you ever realized how much we just accept things without second thought? Like, I bet you've heard someone say, it's gotta be true if it's in the news. Or, this must be good for me. They sell it at health food stores. And for some reason, we're just like, yep, no need to double check. It's like our brains are on a never-ending vacation, refusing to come back and ask, but wait, why? Now, we've all seen it. Scrolling through social media and coming across some fun fact or hot take, and before you know it, you're nodding along, sharing it with your friends. Oh, that post said cucumbers can cure anxiety? Seemed legit. Your friend shared an article that declared coffee makes you live longer? Of course, I'll drink to that. Literally. But what if we stopped and asked, where's this info coming from? I know, groundbreaking. Imagine if we all just paused, took a breath, and considered whether cucumbers are actually going to save our mental health. Spoiler alert, they won't. The real question, though, is why is it so easy to believe things without question? And why does challenging a simple statement feel like running a mental marathon? Now, stick around and we'll find out why our brains prefer shortcuts, and we'll even learn a few tricks to keep our critical thinking on point. All right, so here we are, unraveling the mysteries of our lazy brains. Now let's get into what critical thinking actually means, and more importantly, why it's so vital if we want to survive in the digital age without becoming human megaphones for half-baked ideas. Now, at its core, critical thinking is about questioning what we hear, read, or see instead of blindly accepting it. It's kind of like being the Sherlock Holmes of your own mind. Imagine if every time someone told you, well, everyone says this, or trust me, I read it somewhere, your brain went, hold on there, Watson. Let's examine this evidence. So what does it take to be a critical thinker? Well, let's break down a few of the big skills you need. The first one, observation. Now, it sounds simple, I know, but you'd be surprised how many people skip this. Observation isn't just about seeing what's there. It's about noticing what's missing. Think of it like watching a movie, but paying attention to those little background details. Critical thinkers notice when something doesn't quite add up. Like that one friend who always has insider information, but never seems to have any actual sources. And then we have analysis. Here's where we get a bit scientific. Analysis is about breaking down information into bite-sized chunks. Imagine you're at a buffet, and instead of piling everything on your plate, you're picking out only what you're sure is going to taste good. With analysis, you're separating fact from fluff. So ask yourself, is this info from a reliable source? What's the context? Could there be another side to the story? And then we have interpretation. Interpretation. Here's where things get tricky because, believe it or not, our brains love drama. We naturally want to jump to conclusions. It's faster, and let's face it, it's more exciting. But a good critical thinker steps back and asks, am I looking at this objectively, or am I just hungry for a plot twist? Instead of just saying, oh, wow, that sounds scandalous, they ask, what's the real message here? And after that, we come to the evaluation part. Well, think of evaluation like being the judge in a courtroom where facts are on trial. It's your job to determine which pieces of information are credible and which are about as reliable as a weather forecast for next year. A critical thinker evaluates by checking sources, asking for evidence, and basically playing the devil's advocate with every piece of information they come across. And after that comes the explanation part. Well, here's the fun part. Being able to explain why you believe what you believe. If you can't explain it without saying, I just feel like it's true, it's probably not based on critical thinking. Try explaining the reasoning behind your opinions and decisions. You might be surprised how many ideas you drop once you start needing actual proof. And finally, there's self-regulation. This one's the cherry on top. Self-regulation is all about holding yourself accountable. Critical thinkers don't just apply these skills to other people's ideas. They apply them to their own. They challenge their own biases, assumptions, embrace yourself, even their beliefs. It's the ability to say, maybe I'm wrong, which, let's be real, is like trying to convince a cat to take a bath. It's hard, but it's possible. Now, why are these skills important? Because without them, we're just sponges for every piece of information out there. And in a world where information flies at us faster than we can even blink, it's easier to end up with a head full of fluff instead of facts. Well, think about it. If you just believe everything you read, you're essentially handing over control of your brain. You're saying, go ahead, world, fill me up with whatever you want. And believe me, not everything out there is nutritious brain food. All right. Now that we've armed ourselves with the essentials of critical thinking, let's take a look at how we can actually put these skills into action. Let's talk about applying them in real life where distractions, misinformation, and downright weird advice are waiting for us at every turn. Now here's how to use our shiny new critical thinking skills without losing our minds or offending our Facebook friends, well, too much. First, let's start with spotting red flags in news and social media. Picture this. You're scrolling through your feed and you see a headline that says, scientists discovered chocolate cake for breakfast makes you live longer. Now, before you run to stock up on cake mix, here's a tip. Check the source. Headlines like these tend to come from, shall we say, enthusiastic sources. Look at who's publishing it and ask yourself, is this a reputable site? Or do they usually focus on articles like top 10 celebrity hairstyles that can change your life? And here's a tip for you. Make a habit of checking at least 2 sources before you start sharing or believing. If nobody else is talking about chocolate cake's miraculous life-extending properties, it's probably not real science. I know, that's tragic, but it is true. And now here's another technique. Ask why 3 times. Well, that one's simple, but powerful. When you encounter a fact, ask yourself why. If you get an answer, ask why again. Then once more. You're basically drilling down to the core of any claim. For example, if someone says you have to drink 8 glasses of water a day, you can ask why. Why 8? Why not 6 or 10? Why does everyone say this, but nobody can explain where it started? By the third why, you'll often find that a lot of facts are more like popular myths floating around without much foundation. Your brain will thank you for doing the heavy lifting and sparing it from half-baked ideas. And now let's move on to another tip. Practice thinking in reverse. Well, thinking in reverse means questioning your own beliefs and flipping the perspective. It's like playing a game with yourself, where you ask, what would I think if the opposite were true? This is especially useful when discussing politics or social issues, where it's easy to get stuck in an echo chamber of people who agree with you. Now, here's a tip. Try reading articles or watching videos from perspectives that differ from your own. You don't have to agree, but just putting yourself in the shoes of the other side can help you understand their reasoning and keep you from falling into the trap of one-sided thinking. And our next tip is avoid the bandwagon effect trap. Ever notice how when everyone seems to be talking about something, we just start nodding along? It's the old bandwagon effect, thinking something is true just because everyone else believes it. Now, here's a trick. Remind yourself that popularity doesn't equal accuracy. Try this little mental trick. Imagine yourself in a room where everyone's wearing tinfoil hats and telling you the earth is flat. Would you believe it just because they all agree? No, you'd probably think these people have lost it. Treat every new opinion or fact you come across the same way. Just because it's everywhere doesn't mean it's right. And the next one is very important. The next tip is very important. Put your ego in check. Now, here's a fun, humbling exercise. Assume you're wrong until proven right. If you're passionate about something, maybe a personal opinion or a favorite conspiracy theory, no judgment here, try to find the weakness in your own argument. For example, let's say you're convinced that pineapple on pizza is a culinary crime. Well, ask yourself, why do other people love it? Is there a reason they see it differently? By questioning your own stance, you build flexibility in thinking and realize it's possible for two different opinions to exist in the same universe. Imagine that. And finally, learn to say, I don't know. And this is our last trick for today, and it is a big one. Embrace the art of saying, I don't know. We live in a world where admitting we don't know something feels like a weakness. Now, guess what? It's the opposite. It shows that you're wise enough to recognize the limits of your knowledge. And here's a tip. Next time someone asks you something and you're not sure, just say, I don't know, but I'd like to find out. Not only does it make you sound refreshingly honest, but it also gives you the freedom to actually seek the truth instead of making something up on the fly. Now, my friends, in a world full of easy answers, critical thinking can feel like a lot of work. But think of it as mental exercise. Sure, it's effort, but it keeps your brain in shape. So the next time you're faced with a claim that sounds too good or too wild to be true, remember, take a breath, ask a few questions, and maybe do a little research. And here's the real challenge. Spread the love. Share these skills with friends and family. After all, a world full of critical thinkers is a world that's just a little hard to fool. And wouldn't that be nice? Well, that'll be the end of our video for today. And of course, if you like the video, you know what to do. Subscribe, like, share it with your friends and family. You would want them to learn about the things you just learned about, right? And with that being said, thank you very much for watching. And remember, never stop learning with English Plus Podcast.